Hello, and welcome to The Confident Commit, the podcast for anyone who wants to join the conversation on making software delivery better and faster.
If you're looking to build a trusted ship, tune in, let's confidently commit.
I'm your host, Rob Zuber, CTO of CircleCI, the industry leader for all things CI and CD. Today, as promised, I'm joined by one of our very own, Aisling Conroy, who is responsible for product marketing, competitive intelligence, industry analysts, and many other things actually at CircleCI. And so has a fantastically broad perspective of the industry that we operate in, the history of the things that we do, how many, many different people think about the space. And I think it's going to be just an awesome conversation about how the space has evolved and where we're headed next. Thanks so much for joining me, Aisling. It's great to have you.
Delighted to be here. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you bet. Wow, I'm excited. Talking about kind of CD, how we got here, you know, where we're trying to go, the problems we're trying to solve, et cetera. I'm super excited to get your vantage point, you know, again, looking at the whole space, looking at many of the different products that are out there and how people think about it. So can you kick us off with just a little bit of kind of background, how you think about it, and then a little bit of, you know, what you've seen happen up to this point?
Sure, can do. I mean, maybe it's helpful to know like my own perspective on this market. So like as Robbie said, like I'm coming from this from looking how markets evolve, how competitors do things differently. And what I get really excited about is just seeing how trends develop over time. And what's particularly cool about the space that we're in is just how rapidly things can evolve and change. So we're in a very new market, I would say, comparatively to other types of products and spaces. But even within that short amount of time, we've seen a lot of trends come and go, competitors come and go. And I think what's really nice about it is that because there's a relative low barrier to entry or a relatively low risk barrier for companies, it's very easy for different types of companies to get an idea, see if it works, test it out, try some messaging, and evolve from there. So in terms of the overall market, as we look at it today, what I also really like about this market is that it's not just every company that's trying to offer a solution in the market is coming at it from the same perspective. We have people who are very focused on the issue of CI/CD, and then you have other vendors who are doing many things, of which one is CI/CD. And when you have different perspectives moving into solving a problem, you always end up with different product offerings coming out from that. So that leads to a lot of different features coming on stream at different times, and a lot of different ways and perspectives companies have at what problem they think they're trying to solve and what problems they choose to prioritize to solve first. So there's some of the nuances I really like, particularly about CI/CD.
Yeah, well, I love that you led with, you know, the fact that we can experiment and try things. It's kind of why we do CI/CD, right? Like you would think if anybody should be good at moving quickly, experimenting, getting things out into the market, it should be people who think about CI and CD a lot. So if you look at the overall market, then is there sort of something that's new or novel, a place that maybe folks are focusing? I know you spend a lot of time with analysts. Like, is there an analyst view of kind of what really matters in the big picture? Maybe what's driving a lot of people to be interested in the space?
Yeah. I mean, you remind me of something I saw a while back. I was at AWS reInvent a while ago, and I remember seeing there was one booth where they'd actually just taken a cardboard box and they had a Sharpie and they were like writing out a message and like holding it up to like just test out something new. Like that's just how fast it moves. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like to your question, I mean, there's kind of two things with that. There's what I see the kind of investment areas or like the initiatives that companies are taking to be the most important thing this year, and then there's like what the analysts are saying. So if I was to split up the way we see the market evolving this year, One really nice thing as well about our space is that it's so open. I mean, compared to other markets where, companies really are keeping it very close to their chest what they're doing. I mean, there's product roadmaps everywhere on the internet, so like what's happening in the market. So it's quite easy to see where the investments are going. And there's kind of two main high level areas where that is breaking down. So on the one hand, you have companies that are investing in trying to attract new users. So that would result in things like having creating new features that would maybe open them up to a new type of audience, maybe supporting new operating systems, or just trying to add new features that enable their customers to do something new. So that's on one side. On the other side, then you have people who are still focusing on the core product that they have, but in enhancing the user experience. So that's where people are more so focused on increasing efficiencies, having better feedback loops, and maybe just making the product more accessible. So like they're very high level, two different ways we see people approach the market at the moment. And maybe from an analyst perspective, that's analysts have just such a super cool position in the market, because not only are they hearing from companies like us and hearing directly from the companies that are making the products on like what they're doing, why they're excited about it, why they think it matters. They also on the other side have enterprise customers who are coming to them and saying, I'm about to make like $1 million investment that'll chart the course of my next 10 years, and I want you to help me do it. So they feel the responsibility, like with great power comes great responsibility. So on the one hand, they're trying to provide guidance to both sides of that seesaw, and they're hearing very high level customer demands, and they're trying to feed that back to ourselves and to the market to say where they think the market's going, where they know investments are going, and trying to chart what they think will be best to evolve the market. So that's two sides we see.
Do you think there's any disconnect at the moment between those two? I mean, there's always a little bit, but is there anything interesting that pops out in terms of, maybe the enterprise problem or a specific new set of problems, maybe versus what companies like us have been focused on?
Yeah, and yeah, that is a live problem. Absolutely. There's always a little bit of disconnect, but particularly now when there's just, we talked about it, it's so fast, the things that are moving in the market. And, we have new capabilities from when ChatGPT launched, and people are starting to find out how they're bringing that into their products. That was a huge thing that I think analysts knew were coming. Like they've been saying for a while, in fairness, that this is something that's going to completely change how the market operates. But maybe seeing the actual realities and practicalities of how people are taking it on is something now that they're massaging and seeing how that will now that we know what it looks like, how that will affect the next couple of years. And what we also tend to see is that there might be a starting hypothesis that analysts would have based on having conversations with their customers, and then once they dig a little deeper, they adapt. So, I mean, for example, I know some companies have just been through their annual report process, so that where they would have gathered a lot of vast feedback from a lot of different customers, asking them how they're using tools. And I know from talking to analysts before the reports were done versus afterwards, certainly their perspective has changed, and the nuances have come up once they hear how people are really using tools and expecting to use tools. So yeah, there's constantly a little bit of catch up going on, but I guess that's what makes us all make sure that we're focused and we're staying on point with all of the changes that are happening in the market.
Yeah, well, that change in particular, I think, is one where no one really knows where we're going or how it's going to end up. Everyone just knows there's a lot in flux. And so a great opportunity to have that sort of fast feedback, the tight communication, analysts, customers, providers. So when you think about providing tools in this space in general, CI/CD, developer tooling as a whole, I personally think the developer is a very interesting customer, right? As a developer, as someone who spent a lot of time with developers, is there anything that really stands out for you as being specific to this industry in terms of maybe isn't even different philosophically across products, but something that's consistent about the developer as a customer and what people really have to focus on to get the developer customer right?
It is it's a particular segment. It's like you can liken it. There's always analogies you can make depending on what market you're talking about, but certainly you would put the developer, I think, in a very discerning customer space. This isn't just selling, fast food or I mean, I don't know what the right analogy is, but like this is a space that people care a lot of what they want to work with, and people have opinions on like how if people have strong opinions on how they want their experience to play out with the products that they use. They might have very specific nuances of how their processes and how like tools need to feed into the processes that they have set up in their team. So, and that can be while every customer can be discerning and while every customer can care, what that means in terms of the eventual tool that they use can be quite different. So, you can have certain teams where they're very, very passionate about being able to create bespoke and unique use cases that fit specifically for the kind of things they do. And they might be doing something that's quite different from many developer teams. So they're looking for something that they'll be able to manually tweak and change, and they want a lot of ownership on it. Then you have other types of teams where, there's a huge level of confidence that they need to have in what they push out. So there's maybe more trade-offs that they would make in terms of how the product worked, as long as they were really sure that they have the reliability of what they're pushing out.
Well, I think it's actually really interesting that you mentioned the fast food, because this is going to be really weird, but I'm going to go with it for a second. Like, fast food is a very easy build versus buy problem for many people, right? Like, I could go out and eat, or I could just make something myself. And so I'm always making that trade-off, and I'm trying to pick something else, like my car. Even I've always got like a musical instrument hanging behind me. It's a very small class of musicians who say, maybe I'll purchase the musical instrument that's available. Maybe I'll just make my own. But a software developer as a customer is basically, to your point, they always have these sort of complex set of requirements that they're thinking about, and then would say, yeah, maybe I'll use yours, but probably I could just build it myself, because it's such an unconstrained sort of consumer, right? Like, I have the ability. Of course, it's a time and trade. There's opportunity cost, there's time and energy, there's investment. Am I really investing in the right thing? But I do think that provides like a specific, unique insight into that customer. And so through that lens, like, is there anything that you see in the market overall where people are focusing more on that particular aspect of the customer? Like, how do I work with a customer who does have this maybe more complex set of potential views of the world? Like, they're unconstrained in what they can do. So how do I work with a customer who's unconstrained? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And like I think it's interesting to see, like, you can almost see the design center that different companies have put as like, this is the person I am making this thing for, in terms of like the product that they've created. Because it's either making it really easy for them to do whatever it is they want, and completely bizarre, off the wall, different kinds of situations, or making it super simplified, like the fast food kind of way of like, just give me whatever, just I need sustenance, and then move on. So there's a definite difference there with it. Like, sometimes I think of it like tomato sauce. So like you can grow your own tomatoes and make your own delicious thing, but there's a lot of effort involved. Or like you have the organic like tomato sauce, Rob's tomato sauce company, versus something you just pick up that's like a generic in the supermarket. And that there's also those parallels to our space, I think.
Yeah, yes. I think there's one thing that I've thought about only recently, and which is interesting as someone who's been doing this for so long, but because I'll always say developers love to tinker, like, we love to tweak things and tune things and whatever, but we only love to do that when we want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it's like I just need sustenance, right? This is not my problem right now. I'm trying to do something else. Just give me some calories versus the thing I want to do right now is make my very own marinara sauce to go with these meatballs that I've been making all day or whatever. Like those are two totally different things. And I think we exist in both of those personas, and it's very contextual, right? Like, is this the thing that I consider to be the interesting problem right now? Or is this a thing that I need to be out of the way so I can go focus on the interesting problem? And I don't know if that's odd as a customer, but I think it's definitely interesting about developers, because I always thought, oh, we love to to change things and manipulate things, but then I realized there's this very big split in behavior again based on that context. So, is there anything like we talk a lot about CI? Obviously, we talk a lot about CI/CD. I love CI/CD, but we talk about software delivery on the whole in the show, and I think as just a company that's delivering our own software, we think about it in the bigger picture. Is there anything in the overall delivery space that you think is maybe AI and ML is a big part of that, but that's sort of shifting or creating an opportunity to think really differently about the way that you provide software delivery, the way that people are, approaching it, that's sort of testing our thinking or our models?
Yeah. Oh, well, there's a lot, but there's one that I think is really unfolding right now that I just think is really cool. Is over the last while, there's been kind of a debate between like pure code versus low code, and I think for a while there was maybe a non-significant amount of people who said low code's just going to take over the world. And I think as that debate and as those nuances and products have evolved, it's kind of now become more so. There's definitely a world where everything's needed, like all approaches are needed, and even more so now that we have AI and ML offerings coming into products, that we're starting to see that the future will probably be that both exist, but they serve different uses. And something that I'm really interested to see happen more, and some like forecasts that I've heard is that while now we more so have traditional the traditional software team are people who have gone to college or who have gone to boot camps, and like they're very versed in understanding coding and to make to deliver software. What we might see come more so in the future is that we start to have teams where you have more of a maybe product manager being involved, or maybe being able to have people who are more customer facing involved, who aren't software engineers themselves, maybe will never want to know how to be able to deal with software, but may have a quick fix or something that they think, I know right now that this customer needs this thing. If there's a way, in a low code way, that I could offer that change, there's more opportunity for collaboration in a kind of new hybrid team. And I think that we might only just be at the starts of how that starts to evolve and how people actually operate in that kind of model. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there for something like that, which is cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that. I think like one of the things we've experienced over the, what are we now, 12 years, I guess, as an organization is there's a fundamental problem that we're solving for, which is people trying to deliver great products to their customers. And then underlying that, there's all this shift in the capabilities that we have to go about doing that, right? I mean, I've been around long enough that we were still managing memory, as we were trying to deliver great products to customers. And we've moved away from a lot of that, right? We build higher and higher levels of abstractions. And now the abstractions are almost fracturing, like using AI to generate low-level code versus, to your point, using low code or like basically gluing together building blocks. Although I started programming with Excel, which is pretty much low code, like you're gluing together building blocks. And so at the end of the day, the goal is still the same, right? I'm trying to build a great product. I'm trying to build that product for customers. So the fundamental objective, I think, doesn't change, but the tools that we're going to use to support and enable those teams, I think, will. And I do think, to your point of PM, a stakeholder, whatever, being able to say, oh, I'd love to make this change, right? Why do I need to get that, like, go talk to a product manager, have them, analyze it, decide its priority and whatever, when we're talking about yeah, I don't know. I love button colors as the example of like really simple things that might have an impact, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, do you see anything in particular where I don't know, I sort of just came up with that model in my head of fracturing, but where there are choices to be made around how we build tools for folks who are approaching things in different ways, or is it still a generalized problem that you can plug into, I guess, based on how you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what I see from how products are evolving or like looking at roadmaps, it seems like a consideration, but maybe we're still at the early stages of yes, because I feel we're almost at that stage of like, oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, I'd like to be able to do that, but we're still not at the push of like people want it, people are hungry for it, we're ready, we have an idea. So there's still definitely an opportunity to see how that or propose how that would might work in reality for teams. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot on that, like I love the idea of layering up these abstractions so you can work with simpler things that are sort of, pre-baked or whatever you want to think about in a low code space. But it feels to me like even low code platforms are sort of designed by people who think like software developers, right? It's like control flow and objects and whatever, as opposed to, I think, like a designer, right? I think about how this thing should flow, not about kind of the underlying logic. And I don't know what it would look like to make that transition. Or I think even at a higher level, I think like the consumer of this product, right? Like, I'm trying to think of, well, I mean, I talked a little bit about music, but like music mixing software, right? I don't know how to write software, but I know a lot about music. Sorry, I actually know how to write software, but you get the idea. So someone who just understands music thinks about the structure of music very differently than you would think about a piece of software. Can we get to the place where someone like that can say, no, 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 that's not how a musician would think about it, right? Change this around like this and move this over here and have it actually still be functional. And then your software developers are maybe doing like digital signal processing down below that, worried about like actually moving music around. I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like it would change software delivery in some way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you're making me think of an example that an analyst actually gave me of like, you're in a factory, you're making sure that you're optimizing the flow of products through the factory, and you come up with an idea. Wouldn't it be great if like what objects look like, if you change the orientation, I'm completely making it up now, that would save you 2 seconds per transition. Like if you could just go and maybe like move something in a very easy way, but that would translate to a way that the machine would operate differently. Like that's what you want to be able to
Mm-hmm.
give that kind of level of control, but also opportunity to people. Yeah, so I think a lot of really cool opportunity there.
Well, having worked in a factory where all of our software systems were written in small talk, I'll just throw it out there for anybody that's listening that even knows what that is. Like, it was an entirely different department that built these in-house tools to do shop floor management. Like, if you had a small optimization, you just said, forget it. It's not worth it. And it's exactly to your point. I mean, we were producing millions of dollars worth of hardware a day, and I'm sure it was worth it for the effort that it actually took, right? But for the effort of getting that effort to happen, it was just like, forget it. We'll be fine. Like we're fine. And you end up in this, exactly to your point, like just stuck. You don't have the opportunity in front of you. You just don't even have a pathway to get there. Awesome. Well, anything else that you're super pumped about that's changing in our future here?
Well, like a lot. I mean, like definitely the amount of new types of companies, new types of problems that customers are solving is going to push everyone to make better tools to serve them. So
Mm-hmm.
really, just watching how all of these things are evolving, and just given, like I said, like there's so many different perspectives on what people think are the most important problems to solve. We're all going to get to see a lot of ways people are addressing them and learn from each other. So yeah, it's a super exciting time in the market.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I see so many things happen where I just think, really? We're solving that? And then I'm often proven wrong. I'll admit it. I'm often proven wrong later when I say, oh, that's what they were actually trying to, oh, that's really cool. That actually changes the problem in a really, really big and fundamental way. And we have to try a lot of things, many of which maybe we're a little bit out there. Certainly the number of JavaScript transpilers that we've built over the years feels like it maybe wasn't the best use of everybody's time, but we continue to do that and evolve technology and build new things. And then all of a sudden you have something that really changes the game for everybody. And it's super fun to be along for the ride. Sure. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Aisling. This has been awesome. I love the depth and the perspective of just everything that's happening around us. We often get stuck in our own little spot, but everybody's doing things differently in a way that can really open our eyes and help us think about new solutions to novel problems. Thanks to everybody else for tuning in today and listening. If you want us to talk to someone in particular, if you want us to cover a new or interesting topic for you, find us on Twitter at CircleCI. And of course, subscribe to the podcast at your podcast provider of choice. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Again, thanks so much, Aisling, for joining me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
If you like what you heard today and want to learn more about building, testing, and delivering AI-enabled software, we've gathered all our best resources and tutorials into one place. Go to circleci.com/AI-ML to explore and start learning.